Hi everyone, welcome back. This is my Pan in Every Eyeshadow palette update video, which I put out at the beginning of every month, and it's a way for me to update you guys on the progress of this new little series I've got going on, this new little challenge on my channel this year. So it's all about hitting as many pans as possible in as many of my eyeshadow palettes as possible. And for the first two updates I made really good progress. I hit pan in 4 shades in January, another 4 pans in February, and I really did think that I was going to have no pans to update you guys on at this month, but thankfully I have 1 pan to update you on. So I'll share with you which shade I have managed to hit pan on and give you some update on the other shades that I've been focusing on as well. Oh, actually, I've hit pan on 2 shades, but the second shade is an eyeshadow that I wasn't focusing on as part of this challenge, and it comes from a palette that I didn't have any pans in, so I'm really happy about that this palette now has a pan in. This is my ABH Norvina palette. Now, when I do my eyeshadow, I use the 3 similar shades every time I wear my eyeshadow. So for example, I always go for a matte ivory shade to set my eyeshadow primer, and then I always go for like a light brown, similar to like this colour of my top, as a crease shade, and then I always go for a light shimmery shade in the inner corner of my eyes and under my brow bone. And I kind of was drawn to using Dreamer as my inner corner shade because it had got quite a good dip in it anyway, and it was just a really beautiful colour, and it was right next to Summer, which I use a lot at the moment. And I have managed to hit pan in Dreamer unexpectedly. I hit pan in it. I wasn't expecting to hit pan in it so soon, especially as well because I wasn't even focusing on it. It was just the fact that I just ended up using that shade as my inner corner highlight. So I was actually in this update video gonna roll this shade in to hit pan in it, but I've hit pan in it already, so yay! I have hit pan in a shade from my Norvina palette, which is really good because I've got so much good progress in my Modern Renaissance palette, and I felt like that I wasn't seeing the same in this palette, so very happy that I have hit pan in 1 shade in Norvina. So I'm going to go through the rest of the eyeshadows in order as they appear on my notepad here, because if I mix it up I'm going to confuse myself. So let's stick with Norvina actually. The next shade is Base, which I used 19 times. It's this matte ivory shade here, so this is a shade I'm focusing on to set my eyeshadow primer. Now I would have thought, because I use a lot of this, because I use it all over the lid and I use it every single time that I wear eyeshadow, and I've used it 19 times, I was expecting a much bigger pan in this so far, but it still looks relatively flat, so I reckon I've got a good like 2 or 3 months before I hit pan in this shade. Now I think I've said this in another video recently, but I feel like the pans in Norvina are a lot harder to hit pan in comparison to Modern Renaissance. I feel like I've hit pan in the Modern Renaissance shades so much quicker and easier in comparison to these ones. Now yes, I do think I had bigger dips in the Modern Renaissance pans to begin with, but I feel like these ones are just take a little bit longer, so a little bit frustrating, but I am going to get there anyway with it because, like I say, it's a shade I use every time I wear eyeshadow. So that is Base there. I used it 19 times, and like I say, 2 to 3 months I reckon, and I should hit pan on that one. Okay, so next is the eyeshadow that I've hit pan in, and I'm really happy to say that it's come from my Viva Essentials palette, which is this monster of a palette. I mean, just look at the size of those pans. They are absolutely huge. I wasn't expecting to hit pan in 1 of these shades this year, let alone 2. So I have previously hit pan in the shade So Shy, which was my matte ivory shade that I used to set my eyeshadow primer. And then the other shade that I was working on in this palette is Buff, which is my crease shade. And this is the one that I have hit pan in. Now, it is a tiny pan. It is very small, but it is a pan nonetheless. I can see the metallic pan in this shade, so yeah, I have hit pan in Buff. Don't think you can really see it from there, but I will put in a close-up picture of it. Now I had a really like small circular dent in this eyeshadow. Now like I say, this was my crease shade, so I was using a big fluffy brush to use it as my crease shade, but what I did as well is I got a really dense flat packer brush and kind of dug that eyeshadow brush into that dent to then apply it under my lower lash line, and that what has helped me to hit pan in that shade. It took me 18 uses this month to hit pan in it, and I hit pan on it on the 31st of March. So I need another shade within this palette to focus on. And what I feel like I'm missing at the moment is a darker brown, either to darken up the outer V or to use as like an eyeliner shade. So I have chosen Delicious, this dark, rich, warm brown up here. Now, because I'm mostly going to use this was either there, because I'm mostly going to use this one, slow down, as an eyeliner shade, I'm going to use an eyeliner brush which is very dense. So this one, hopefully, maybe like a couple of months and I should hit pan on it, because I'm using a really dense, hard brush. If I was using a fluffy brush and I was picking up like a fine layer all over the pan, that would take me months to hit pan on it. So I'm hoping by mid-year, half year, what am I saying? Halfway through the year. My goodness, can't speak today. And I should hopefully have pan in this one as well. I haven't actually used Delicious yet either, so that's how we're starting off with that one. So the next one comes from my other Viva palette, which is the Muse palette, and the shade I was working on was the shade Love down here, this warm mid pink shade. I haven't used this at all, which is really, really bad. I just haven't reached for it. This palette is absolutely beautiful, the quality is incredible, but I just don't wear pinks and purples. Now, this is a warm palette, so it's better than me wearing cool tone shades, but I just don't really wear pinks and purples, and I just haven't wanted to reach for this palette. Now, I'm unsure what I'm going to do with this palette. It's highly likely that I will declutter it at the end of the year, but I think in the meantime I want to work on different shades within this palette. So I was originally working on Regal, because that's the one that I had the biggest dent in. That was too dark. Love, I just haven't really reached for, so I'm going to change it up. I'm going to focus on a different shade within this palette, and seeing as we're moving into the springtime now, I like to go a little bit more spring-like with my makeup as much as I possibly can, you know, being an autumn. So I'm going to go for Peony, which is this matte, really light peachy pink shade. It is very warm toned, so I think this will complement a couple of other shades within this challenge really nicely. So this one can be the shade that I'll use to set my eyeshadow primer, and then I'll use some of the peachier shades over the top of it. So I'm going to work on that one. I do have a nice little dip in it as well, so we'll see how I progress with that one, and then I might also rotate that one out and then focus on another one another month. Oh, actually, another thing I'm going to do with the Viva Muse palette, so where I hit pan in Dreamer in ABH Norvina, I now need a new inner corner shimmer shade to focus on. So what I have decided to do as well, I'm going to actually rotate in another shade from the Muse palette to use as my inner shimmer corner shade. I'm going to use this one called Divine, and because I'm going to use a really, really like pointy brush to apply it in my inner corner, hopefully I can see some really good progress on this shade pretty quickly because of using that dense brush. So within this shade then, I'm gonna roll out Love, because I haven't used it at all, and I'm gonna roll in Peony and Divine, and hopefully I can see some more progress on these two shades. Right, let's stick with Norvina. We're going a little bit back and forth between all these palettes at the moment, sorry if that's getting a little bit confusing. My next shade is my current favourite eyeshadow shade that I'm loving wearing. It's so incredibly beautiful. I've used it 12 times and it's summer. It's this really like, not really light, it's like a mid-warm yellowy orange gold. It's so incredibly beautiful and I love wearing this shade at the moment, and that works so well with a lot of the other shades within this challenge, so I feel like I'm really getting my use out of this shade. Not really seeing much in terms of like an indent in this pan though, so this is another one that I do think is going to take, you know, a good 2 or 3 months before I hit pan in it, but it's a shade that I'm thoroughly enjoying wearing at the moment, and I used it 12 times since the previous update. Okay, over to Modern Renaissance, also by ABH. I have 3 pans in this palette already, Tempera, Primavera and Vermeer, and the shade that I've been focusing on since the previous update is Golden Ochre. I've used this shade 3 times, but I'm actually going to roll this shade out. This is a really good shade to apply all over the lid and to set my eyeshadow primer, but I've got base from Norvina to do that roll. So I feel like Golden Ochre is a little bit redundant at the moment, and that's why I've only used it 3 times, because I feel like it's not really got a place in my eyeshadow routine at the moment. So I'm going to roll it out, and the shade that I have decided to work on, let me consult my new list, is Raw Sienna, this really warm brown crease shade. And I hit pan in Buff from Viva Essentials, so I need a new crease shade to work on. So I'm really hoping now that I can use this one way more than Golden Ochre, way more than 3 times, because there is a need for me to use this type of shade now. So Golden Ochre has been rolled out and Raw Sienna has been rolled in. Okay, next one comes from my Laura Geller Sunday Funday eyeshadow palette, along with a blusher and highlighter. And the shade I'm focusing on is Tantalising Taupe, which is this shimmery bronze shade. It's a beautiful, beautiful shade, and I really do need to wear it more. I have only worn it 5 times since the previous update, and I really want to start focusing on this one a bit more, because like I say, it's a beautiful shade. It works with loads of other shades within this challenge, and I've got a good dip going on in this one. So if I focus on it, it probably should only take me a month, 2 months max to really hit pan on it, because I use a flat packer brush to apply it, and because you do need quite a bit of pigment actually with this shade, you're picking up a lot of product and you're dipping your brush in a lot of times into this. So I am seeing good progress in this whenever I use it, but yeah, I need to use it more than 5 times. One that I've used even fewer than 5 times, this is another one that I need to use more of. It's the shade Toasted Taupe. Again, it's a beautiful shade. This is from the Laura Geller TGI Thursday palette. Beautiful, beautiful shade, but I don't really reach for it. I really do love me a brown gold eyeshadow look, and where this is, you know, a warm shade, it's more of like a khaki taupe shade, and this is very much a one shade and done. So where I want to use as many of these eyeshadows as possible, if I go for this one, there's only a couple of other eyeshadows that I can actually use within this challenge, so I need to use this one more than once, because I also do have a really good dip going on in this eyeshadow. So if I focus on it more, I can get through it fairly quickly. And then the only other shade I'm going to focus on in this palette is Olive You, because the other shades I don't like. So need to pull my finger out and actually start using the shade a bit more frequently. I feel like I need to spend, or I need to rotate through these eyeshadows every single day. So instead of always using Summer from Norvina, I use this one day, Tantalising Taupe the next day, a Viva Muse shade the next day, but I stick to what I know and what I like. Another one that I need to focus on, because it's the only shade in this little duo that I have left to work on, and I love it. It's beautiful. It's this right hand shade one from my NARS duo in Isolde. I only used it twice. I should have used this one more, because this one works with so many other shades within this challenge as well. I've got a lot of golds and browns, I've got some mattes and shimmers going on, so there's really no reason why I can't use this more than twice. Beautiful bronze, like an orange bronze colour. It's stunning. I love this duo so much. Now, I don't have much of a dip going on in this one, but these pans are actually really shallow, so another one that if I really focus on, I really set my mind to it, it shouldn't take me long to hit pan on it. So, and then once I have, that's this duo done, because I've hit pan in both of the shades. And then next one I've used 5 times. This is actually my focus palette for this month. It's part of my Shop My Stash. It's from my Urban Decay Naked Heat palette, and the shade is Lumbre, which is this really warm peachy orange shade. It's a shimmer. Really, really lovely shade. I do think it's a little bit too bright for me though. I do have a bit of a dip going on with this one, but this one is going to take a couple of months, I think, before I hit pan on it. Now, the shimmers in this palette aren't that pigmented, so you do need to pick up quite a bit on your brush or on your finger. So that is going to help in terms of getting through the shade that bit quicker. And again, this is another one that goes with so many other eyeshadows within my collection. So yeah, another one that I need to rotate in a bit more frequently. So that's my update on my progress since the last check-in video, but there is something that I just want to kind of bring up, and I want to, I suppose, run by you guys and sort of see what your thoughts are on this. So there's 3 palettes within my collection where I know that there's a number of shades that I am not gonna focus on. So I kind of said at the beginning, this challenge is a way for me to hit pan in as many eyeshadow pans in my palettes as possible as I possibly can this year, but there are eyeshadow shades within these palettes that I know I'm not going to work on, because they're either cool toned or they are warm toned but just not the shades that I wear. So for example, pinks, purples, reds, I'm not going to wear them. I've said this numerous times, I like a gold, I like a brown, I like a very neutral, natural eyeshadow colour. So there are 3 palettes here that I'm thinking of doing this with. I was originally thinking shades within these palettes that I know I'm not going to use. So for example, red ochre, Venetian red, I was thinking about depotting them, so actually trying to get this pan out of the palette, and I did try that. I did see if it was possible, and I was actually able to get Wild Child from Norvina out of the palette. I was able to get, I think, my tweezers behind it and like prise out the pan, so I can do that. But I've seen a few, is it depotting your eyeshadow palette videos here on YouTube, where you actually take apart the palettes and put the individual pans, the ones that you like, with the magnetic base behind it into a Z palette. So I suppose my kind of question to you guys is, if I was to take out the shades within these palettes that I know I'm not going to work on, if I was to remove them and only be left with the eyeshadows that I like, would that look weird? Would you not like to see that with these palettes? Now, I did get a comment, I think it was Cecilia who commented that that's what she does with her palettes, and honestly, before I had my YouTube channel, that's what I used to do as well. If there were eyeshadow colours within a palette I didn't like, I scraped them out, and that actually made it really clear to see the shades that I'm left with and the shades that I like and I'm going to use. So shall I do that, or shall I leave it, or shall I actually try properly depotting these palettes and putting the shades that I do like into a separate Z palette? So the palettes that I'm thinking about doing that with are Modern Renaissance, because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, just 5 shades actually within this palette that I'm not going to use, and those are the pinks, the purples and the reds. There's more in Norvina that I'm not going to use. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that I'm not going to use within Norvina. And then from Urban Decay Naked Heat, to be totally honest, the only 4 that I'm going to use is this one, this one, this one and this one. I will keep Lumbre because that's the one I'm working on panning, but when we go up here we go too dark and it gets too red. We kind of like abandon the browns down here, so these colours are too red, they're too burgundy, they're too purple for me. So what are your thoughts? Please leave me a comment down below. What do you think I should do? Shall I just scrape out the shades that I'm not going to use and be left with a palette of shades that I am going to use? Or shall I have a go at depotting the palettes and then taking out the shades that I am going to use and popping them, oh we've gone dark, and popping them in a Z palette? I'm not sure what I want to do. So yeah, please leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think would be the best option. What would you prefer to see? Or do you not really mind? Do you just think, you know, Vicky, do whatever best suits you? Please drop me a comment, because I am incredibly indecisive and really don't like making decisions. My boyfriend hates that about me. So there we go then, that is my update. So I have actually 2 pans, one of which was part of the challenge, one of which was not, and I've rolled out 2 shades I think. So a bit of good progress, but there are definitely some shades that I need to work on using that bit more. So hopefully next month the numbers will be looking a little bit better. Like I say, I need to start rotating in more of those shades that I'm not focusing on and where the numbers are low. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up, and like I say, please leave me a comment down below on what you think I should do about those 3 eyeshadow palettes that I've mentioned. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you again very, very soon for my next one. Bye.